Okay. My name is Marta Gonçalves. I'm a neuropsychologist, and my questions go to Raquel. And I have two questions. One is more theoretical, and the other is clinical. The theoretical is, why have you changed from a retrieval measure, the BUSC is a memory and a retrieval measure, to an inhibition measure? You're measuring different things. You found that you had a distinctive and discriminative measure with BUSC. Why this change to an inhibition measure? And the second is this inhibition measure. Why are you measuring gait and not finger tapping?
Okay, so answering your first question, I think a cognitive measure to predict impairment, it's not the best one because you can have impairment in different cognitive domains later on, not only in memory. So the way cognitive reserve is better than other cognitive measures that are normally used during neuropsychological assessments, it's because it's a more clean way because as I explained, this measure allows us to see how two people cope in a different way in the presence of the same damage. So,
yes, but it's described everywhere that with aging, inhibition will drop. Mm-hmm. So you're using a measure that is high sensitive to age.
Yes, but we will look to that measure backward and not forward. So we will compare the same person in time. So we'll imagine that we are measuring it today, and then 5 years later we will use this measure to check how the person, we will assess that person to check how that person is, and then we will see backward how the performance in this task was some years before. And we are comparing that same person in 2 moments. We are not comparing that person to other people.
You can continue the discussion on the break. Are there any other questions? Sorry, I have to. I have one short question, which is for Raquel and Agustín, and maybe also for André. So you identified these participants, right, that have this cognitive impairment and that you think potentially may or not develop Alzheimer's, and you are going to follow them. Now, André, not necessarily just the work you show, but for example, the Fundación ACE HBI project, and there are markers that we know they're not full, we don't have full confidence in them, but we know maybe markers of Alzheimer's disease. Is there a chance that that those patients could maybe be at least offered the possibility to be looked at in terms of markers in cerebrospinal fluid? And then for André, the discovery that you have made, is there any chance we can look at that marker of Alzheimer's in things that we're amenable to take in the clinic, like cerebrospinal fluid or blood?
You want to start?
I can start commenting, the use of markers on preclinical stages only in its infancy. We have to check the validity in longitudinal studies, and as you mentioned, now we are in the very beginning. Now we are observing we have some clues of pathological signatures in advance of amyloidosis in our data sets of individuals without the pathology established. But I think that we are in the very beginning of that. We need to revalidate that in larger series. To cross-validate all the findings in the very, very big studies in the future.
Well, I agree with Agustín in the sense that, we just gathered this preliminary data on the composition of these vesicles, we need to, well, we validated in cell culture in a mouse model, but just in the context of VPS34 knockout or inhibition. It would be now super interesting to try and have a look at other transgenic mouse models of AD specifically. And obviously, in the long term, the goal would be perhaps have a spinal tap, collect cerebrospinal fluid, and look at exosomes as candidate biomarkers, not only of diagnosis, but even eventually as monitoring therapeutic response or evolution.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's thank all the speakers and be back here at 12:15.